Alright, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, I'm gonna go over what is the best weaving school to essentially weave into. Now, there's gonna be a lot of opinions. I know I've seen multiple people in other discords or just in general, no, this is the best school, this is the best school. It's gonna be a lot of what are you doing, right? Like, what are you doing content wise? Are you doing PvP? Are you doing PvE? If you are doing PvE, what fight are you doing, etc. So there's gonna be a lot of what if scenarios, but I'll give you guys my take and what I'm gonna do on all my characters, because essentially I know a lot of you guys like to see what I'm doing and you guys kind of just mirror it, but I will give you guys my opinion why I'm doing that, right? Because I know some people are like, why are you doing this, why are you doing that? So I'll give you guys all that, right? All the information you need to know and everything like that. So stay tuned through the rest of the video whenever I talk about your school and everything like that. So hopefully you guys enjoy, right? And I'll do my best to go thorough and everything like that, but some of it's just very straightforward. Like, I shouldn't have to go too far in depth, but like some of it is just very straightforward and you'll see why. But if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. Join Discord. I appreciate everyone that's been joining. At the moment, as I check right now, we're at around 860 members. So hopefully we can get to 900 members, and I appreciate all the people that have been wanting to join the guild too. I know I haven't been as active in the guild, but that's because I've been busy with like a lot of things in my life, which you guys already know about, right? So eventually we'll do some guild stuff after the update comes out and stuff like that. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. But let's talk about weaving stuff, right? So I'm gonna pull up the slides as usual, right? I've pulled up these slides on stream before. I've mentioned them in streams. I've talked about them in videos, but it's the what is spell fusion, right? In these slides, I talk about the whole fusion stuff. I've made it very easy for people who don't understand what spell fusion is, and I've even updated it with new art and everything like that. So if it's something that you want to look at, you're more than welcome to look at this. It's in the Discord. Just look at the spell fusion tab and you can literally pull this up yourself. At the time I'm recording this, is very early, so you're not going to see really anyone on these slides, but there are people on it time to time, so there's that. But if we go all the way down here, you can see all the cards you get depending on what school you are. So if you look at the top, we'll start off at fire, for example. It says on top, if I'm a fire wizard and if I want to weave into blank school. So these are the cards you get for whatever school you weave into. It's very straightforward. And then of course you have the mono fusion, you know, which you can weave with your own school, or not really weave, my bad. When you fuse cards of your own school, and you can get a different outcome. So there's that. But I'm kind of made it straightforward. I might do like an actual like still images of these, but I haven't done that at the moment because it's still test room and I don't want to finalize an image when things can very much change and I would have to go back and forth a lot. So there's that. But let's start off with fire, right? Shall we? We'll go down the list and I'll tell you guys what school to weave into. So straight up for PvE, what I'm going to be doing, storm. Reason being, these blades, and you're going to hear me say that a lot. For almost every single school that I'm going to be picking, I am going to be doing storm. Now if you look at all the blades, right, or just specifically, like, we'll just start with fire, right? So you see it's the 45 blade, right? Now if we go to ice, you can get a 45 blade. If you go to storm, obviously you can't weave into your own school, but with life, 45 blade. Go to myth, 45 blade. Death, 45 blade. And bounce, you don't get that, but bounce and storm are like the iffy ones, which we'll talk about towards the end. But you'd probably still want to weave into storm because you get two 35 blades. So there's that. But why am I picking that, right? So you get a blade for your own school, right? Obviously if you weave into storm, and you get a storm blade. Now a lot of challenge mode and a lot of advanced content, or just a lot of fights where you just have one big hitter or whatever, 90% of the time, it's like, I would probably, that's my estimate, right? You're gonna see a storm hitter. It's very obvious. And then of course, while you're questing, you can give yourself these, right? If you want to benefit from these blades while questing and stuff like that, sure, go for it. You can give yourself 45 blades. Now yes, they do cost 2 pips, but when you're questing and, you know, arc mastery is not really an issue, you can just, it realistically costs just a power pip, right? Or just even a 1 pip type thing, right? So if you have arc mastery, it's not really that big of an issue. Now when you're doing challenge mode and stuff like that, and sometimes you don't have like arc mastery because you know 90% of the time people aren't rocking a big deck unless it's like certain fights. 2 certain fights I'm going to be prefacing is Kansu or TT challenge mode, or like the rematch, because he has different forms, it's random, etc. You'll know if you've already seen the video on my channel. But those fights require a bigger size deck, and you know, you'll more likely be getting an arc mastery pip very easily. So with that, that's a little bit different, but still, this is a 45 blade. Now, people need to know that you can sharpen these blades. It's not something that you just, you're not allowed to sharpen. You can literally sharpen these and you can get 55% blades. That is a lot of value, in my opinion. Now, of course, that doesn't even forget you can sharpen it, of course. You can use an item card sharpen as well. So you can get 55 blades pretty easily. Now, let's say you have a full team and one storm hitter at the end, and you guys are all weaved into like storm. So let's say, I don't know, let's just say ice into storm. Let's just say life into storm, and then fire into storm, and then you have a storm at the end, right? If you all have your own blade at the end, so fire would have like their inferno blade, ice would have their squall blade, and then of course life would have, I think, yeah, energy blade. You cast out all in the storm, they all stack. People need to realize that they all stack. So it makes like very difficult fights way more easier. Like, yes, in advanced content you're not gonna be able to sharpen these, right? But if you think about it, these are already preemptively sharpened. You want to go that route, right? Now, I know some people might say, but what about for, like the Polaris raid, or what about Khonsu challenge mode if he turns into Daemon, right? Yes, the cheat stack overflow exists where you can't have you can only have 4 of a kind. Yes, then that's a whole separate topic, right? Then we get into like, okay, what do you even need to use the spells at all, right? Do you just use single blades and that's just more value? Stuff like that. So we can go very, very into depth, right? And like I can start talking about every individual fight, like every individual challenge, but will this be useful? Will this be like, but this video would turn into like an hour-and-a-half video of me talking about, for this fight you should probably weave into this, but realistically I should just upload strats for those fights and involve weaving in that sort of sense. But I don't want to do that right off the rip, because not everyone's gonna get like weaving done their first day, right? There are going to be a majority of people who might, right? But I feel like not everyone's gonna be doing it. Like, for example, I'm not gonna be doing weaving day one. Be busy with like challenge mode and like recording other videos. But whenever I do weaving, I'm gonna be doing storm on every single character. Now, if I am balance or storm, let's go to storm. You can't really weave into storm, right? So what is your next best option? Realistically, you can weave into balance. Am I gonna be doing that? Yes. Like, why not? It gives me an extra blade. Extra stackability. Why not? Now, yes, the second best option after that is myth, and that's what you would probably do on every single school. Every single school you should be doing storm first, and then after that do myth. Now, why am I just saying do myth? Is because if you are fire, if you want to weave into fire, you're not going to get a fire trap. You're going to get a dual dot, and that's not always the best scenario. Like, yes, if we're talking about PvP and everything like that, it's a whole separate topic. But if we're talking about like PvE, I'm not using this dual dot. I'm just not. I'm realistically not. And you see a lot of myth hitters. Myth hitters exist, storm hitters exist, fire hitters exist, and myth hitters exist. So next best thing, weave into myth. Get yourself a myth trap, right? And get yourself a trap for your own school. And it's very easy to set up for myth hitters, right? If you're a storm, you should probably weave into balance first, in my opinion. Or second best option, realistically, is weave into myth. Get yourself a dual trap. Get yourself a storm trap and a myth trap. You're supporting yourself and another myth hitter if you're there on their team, right? Or if you're doing some cosplaying stuff, because storm can cosplay into other schools, but of course the resist and health is kind of like, a little bit down in the depths. So you can cosplay, and there's certain fights where I've done literally storm into myth, and I can actually see myself using mythic mermaids, and I can actually see myself using calamity trap. So I'm going to be weaving into balance for the most part, because storm does use blades, right, quite often for their gambits and everything like that. So that's why I'm going to be doing balance. But next best thing is literally I'm going to be doing myth. And same thing for all my other schools. Like, after I get my storm done on like my fire, I'm going to do myth. Same thing on my ice. I'm going to do storm first, and then I'm going to do myth. Storm, I'm gonna be doing balance, and then after that I will be doing myth, and then life I will be doing storm and then myth, and then myth you will be doing storm. Then after that you kind of have an option. Do you want to go into ice, or do you want to go into balance? Realistically, I mean, it doesn't really matter. If you are rocking like a dual myth setup in a challenge mode fight, or like any other fight, then maybe this insinuate is better, right? You guys have 2 myth hitters. Yes, this myth trap is good, right? You can have like additional stackability, but maybe you feel like you don't need that, right? Maybe you just want an attenuate that does a 35% incoming aura, right? So they can take more damage. It's, regular attenuate. If we go over here, if we think it's like over here, where is it? Right here. I'll make this bigger for the purpose of the video. It's 20%. So if we go back to the myth one, you can see it's 35. Well, all of them are 35, but you know, it's an extra 15%. Maybe so maybe you want to do that. But most likely on my myth, I'm going to be doing storm, and then after that, I'll probably be doing ice or balance. Haven't fully decided. I'm not going to be weaving into life. I'm not going to be weaving into fire on any of my schools. The only one I might be weaving into fire into is storm, but that's if for some reason I'm doing PvP, and this can be actually usable in low level PvP. So that's another thing. So there's that. Right, but yeah, and then if we go back to like death, same thing. I would probably weave into storm and then weave into myth right afterwards, and then balance is the iffy one, right? Balance is all things. We know this. It's mentioned in multiple cheats. We all know it as a meme at this point. Balance is literally all things. What are you gonna do on balance? I'm not gonna weave into fire. I'm still gonna be weaving into storm, and then I'm still gonna be weaving into myth. Now these other ones, they're kind of niche. This isn't really supporting anyone. Like, yes, you're supporting, you know, if you have a death hitter, sure, they can benefit off of this. But if you are using balance it to balance it, it's going to convert into death. And the same thing with the aura, it's going to give you an outgoing life aura, but it converts all your balance outgoing damage to life. And the same thing with these put like converts on them. This gives you a convert blade, this gives you a convert trap, and this gives you a convert trap. So you got to keep that in mind. But I would still use the dust blade just for the blades, right? If there's no stack overflow or anything like that, you know, I can still benefit from these blades, and you can use them on a storm, and you can honestly cast these on yourself too, right? So balance is a one where it's like you have a little bit more like do whatever you want. But I feel like if we're going to be running a balance as a support in any other fight, use storm, and then after that you can use myth. Very straightforward. So I wanted to make it very clear what you should weave into. So we'll do it one more time. Fire, you should be doing storm and then myth. Ice, should be doing storm and then myth. Storm, you should be doing balance and then myth. Life, you should be doing storm and then myth. And then myth, you should be doing storm into either balance or ice. You kind of pick whatever. I'll probably be doing ice. And then death, you're gonna do storm into myth. And then balance, you're gonna do storm then myth, and then whatever. So that's what you should be doing for PvE. You know, yes, you can use the auras, yes, you can use the attenuates, but I feel like it depends on the fight. It really depends on the fight. That's like your third option. Like if you're like, okay, I have another option, what can I do, right? You're gonna do storm first on your school, then you're gonna do myth, and then you're gonna do death. Now if you're like, oh, I am death, then what you're gonna do is you're gonna just only do storm and then myth. Like, yes, you can do balance if you want, right? But it's kind of up to you. But I would just do storm and myth on death. But like every other school, like for example like storm, I would probably do myth and balance, and then after that I can do death. That's probably going to be the three important ones I'm going to be weaving into on like all my schools. Specifically for storm is going to be like the weird one where it's like balance, myth, and death. Well, every other school should be storm, myth, and death, you know. So that's when it comes to PvE. Hopefully that explains that very straightforward of why I'm doing it. You get stackability very easily. All these like essentially stack with other people's weaving schools. So if I have a fire ice, or I mean if I have a fire storm and a ice storm, right, and we cast our dual blades on the storm, they all stack, right? You can cast this on yourself while you're questing. 55% blades, very big value. We're essentially almost getting faint blades at this point. They got to be very careful with that. For 2 pips, essentially, you're almost getting a faint blade for sharpening it. So that's a thing. So and yes, if there's a fight where you're like, hey, I can't even blade, what's the point? That's why you've weaved into myth as your second option. You can benefit from that. Yes, if you have a storm hitter, they're not going to benefit from the traps, but hey, they can literally do storm into myth and literally use your traps if you really want to, right? But if you can just trap at that point, you just do feints in PvE, like that's a no-brainer, right? But yeah, I'd say storm priority, then myth, and death. And then, of course, if you're on storm, you would do balance, myth, death. And then if you're on death, you would do just storm and myth. Kind of straightforward. Hopefully that answers all your questions that I get asked a lot. And then now when it comes to PvP, I will give you guys some information, but like I said, I'm not a PvP connoisseur. Yes, I watch PvP. I've watched Devo do PvP. I've watched Sauce do PvP. Sometimes I've even watched Liam do PvP. I've watched a bunch of people do PvP, even Blake back in the day, right? There's plenty of people that watch PvP, right? Now, what is my opinion on this? Right, this is just my opinion, so if people get mad at me for having my own opinion, that is up to you. But what am I going to be weaving to if I want to use the actual fusions and stuff, right? Like if you're like, oh, I want to use the actual fusions, they're going to be beneficial. Now this really comes down to what exactly are you packing in your deck. And the strats, it's like strats are going to be changing a lot, meta is going to be changing a lot, especially with this whole meta coming up, right? Fusion meta essentially. So essentially just comes down to what you're packing in your deck. Now, if I'm going to be saying on fire, I would probably do Bardic Elf. That is just me, because you can use Bardic Elf and then combo into a Scion and it instantly sets it up. If someone doesn't get rid of it, you instantly set it up, and it gets rid of negative charms. So if, you know, that's what I'm probably, you know, if I was a fire wizard and I did PvP, probably do myth. Some of these spells did get buffed recently, like Malevolent, where it's like, you know, hey, if that enemy has shields, you put traps depending on how many shields they have, up to 3. So that's very interesting. You could argue, you know, if they have a dot and then you need to put negative charms, this could be good too. Or put chromatic, that's a thing too. So it's really just up to you on what you're packing in your deck. Like Lightning Dragon's going to be good too because it clears hots, but if you are carrying other hot counters, maybe Lightning Dragon isn't really worth your time. So that's like another thing. It really just comes down to what you're packing, and we can go in depth on all these, right? It's the same thing with ice, right? You probably wouldn't be using Tempest Wyvern. I mean, well, you could be, right? Because realistically, you can clear the traps, or I mean, you can clear the dots, and you can get traps. Like regular Stormzilla, what it does, it clears dots and then gives you blades, but it's not chromatic blades, it's storm blades. So you can maybe use this. So what I'm trying to say is this is like an actual good spell. Evil Magmaman's good too, but they swap the dots around. So the first initial dot is when you clear it, it's an ice dot, and the big dot is the fire one. Before it was the opposite, and it was really good. But this is still good too. Like, it's still really good. You know, Primal Stampede is going to be good too, because of the fact is it clears 3 hots and you can put weaknesses, right? So this one's still gonna be good, and you know, you're gonna be carrying Woolly Mammoth anyways in main, so you can kind of honestly benefit from this. Rock Man of Ages, I mean, it's good, yes, don't get me wrong, it clears negative charms, but like as a ice, I feel like you can clear negative charms pretty easily with Snowman, so I don't really see a reason to fuse them if Snowman exists. So yes, that's up to you. So something like that, right? Storm, this is just a no-brainer. You're gonna go fire now for PvP. So reason being is you only realistically have elf as a dot as a storm if you're running the elf pet, like the nullity pet, or just the regular elf pet that gives you an item card, storm elf. That's your only way of realistically putting a dot. Or you use like some chromatic effect where like if you weave in, or if you just like use Elephant and you clear shields and then you put like a chromatic storm dot, something like that, right? But this I can see being very valuable as a storm, because you can gambit negative charms, you can put a storm dot on them, and you can put a fire dot, constant dots on them, and then you can be very more aggressive. So I feel like it's a no-brainer to weave into fire if you're doing PvP. I've seen people talk about, for example, myth as well, but all the other ones I've seen nobody talk about at all. Like the Chillzilla is kind of like useless, because there's not, like, yes, you do use Snowman and everything like that, but most of the time people don't use shields like that, of like in the way that Storm has been playing recently. Like people instead would rather use Zilla to clear the dots and give yourself a blade and to be more aggressive. This is just more of a defensive move where, you know, you clear the dot and you give yourself 2 chromatic shields. So it's very situational, but I feel like more people pack Snowmans and sides than main, so this might force people if they really want to carry in a main, but I don't see people using this. I see fire being used the most, and then maybe the myth one, just because it can clear negative charms and you can give yourself blades in return. So, and it gives you a blade per clear, so you can get 5 blades if you think about it. Yeah, it's a lot of pips, right? But still, like, you can clear negative charms so easily. 5 of them? Like, what? And you can benefit from this. So I feel like it's going to be fire and then myth, in my opinion, for PvP. But we'll see, right? It's too early to tell. And then life is like a little bit iffy one. I feel like when I saw this first, my initial response for PvP was just like, hey, Centurion, clear shields, give yourself blades in return. You can combo with this, right? You can set up some type of Oni with it. You can do some type of blade stuff with it. very easily. I can see people either trying to using Tiger King or Lord of Lightning. It just kind of like, I don't like it depends, right? Like this, it gambits your blades and it gives you minus 60% shields. And then this one gambits blades and then gives you negative charms on the enemy. The forest fire, I feel like if it gave a life dot, I feel like more people would use it, but who knows, maybe people will still use it regardless because it does clear shields and it does give you blades for those clears. So who knows, maybe someone might use that, but I feel like people are going to be leaning towards Centurion. Maybe like life is a little bit iffy, but I mean, if anything, people are just gonna be spamming Tuara anyways. So honestly, life, do whatever you want, but people are just gonna be spamming Tuara anyways. I've already seen it happen in test realm way too much, so get ready for the Tuara spam as a life wizard in PvP. And then myth, kind of up to you too. Like the other ones are kind of straightforward, but myth has a little bit more like options too. Like I do like Blizzatar, right? Because you're already carrying Minotaur anyways as a myth, and you know, you use that to clear shields, and then you can turn those shields into traps. This can do like literally the same thing but the opposite. Instead of shields, it will clear blades and give you traps. So maybe if someone's blade stacking, this is a very easy counter for that. So there's that. And then these other ones like the fire and storm one, I like those too. This gambits right here, this gambits some shields or traps, I mean traps, and you can put another myth dot, which I mean myth and fire and myth go, they're very good together. They're very good together. So I can see people using Medusa's Fairy as well. I'm not so much about the bats inspiration, but I feel like people will be using like Medusa's Fairy. And the same thing with Storm and Gorgon. Storm and Gorgon's good, right? If you know, even if you just want to use B-Path Storm Trident just to clear away dots or hots, I mean, and you can just carry these in main deck, combine them, and then you can gambit some stuff. If no one's using hots, you can just combine and get yourself a Storm and Gorgon, be a little bit more offensive, and boom. Don't see anyone doing the life one at the moment. Maybe things might change, but at the moment I just don't see anyone doing the life one. And then same thing as the balance one, I don't see anyone doing that. I feel like myth got good fusions in my opinion. These are all three good, and then poisonous toad is, I feel like it's still going to be good due to the fact that it does clear hots, and you know, you do get traps, but I don't know how effective it will be to a certain extent. I feel like people might lean to these three more than anything, but that's just my opinion. But hey, poisonous toad is not like it's like terrible. It's definitely the better, like it's up there with the top four, of course. Like if we moved it over here, it'll be good, but I don't think anyone would be doing life or balance, so at least on a myth. And then death, the fire one, I feel like it's going to be a no-brainer for more people. These other ones are going to be kind of like, it's up to you. What are you packing? And stuff like that, but I feel like this one is going to be more of like what death wizards are going to be doing. The storm one's good too, like the Joltergeist, but it gambits negative charms and it puts a negative aura on them. Now that's up to you, like if you want to waste the negative charms, but I feel like the clearing aspect is a little bit more better in my opinion, and you give yourself blades. Yeah, it's very nice, and it requires the other person to be more aggressive and try to get rid of your blades. So hey, and you're gonna be carrying Elephant to get rid of shields, give yourself a chromatic dot, do some damage. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm leaning towards Pyro Dragon a little bit more. But these other ones, it kind of depends on what you're doing. You're like the gambiting ones, like the gambiting negative charms, that is up to you depending on what you're packing in your deck. Like, are you going to be packing a Bloodbat in your deck? And then this one too, like, are you going to be packing Krakens in your deck? Like, I can see people actually packing Elephants, but I don't know about these two, right? And the same thing with the Beetle. Yes, you know, you can gambit shields and put traps on them. I can see that happening, right? I can see this being happening, but it is 7 pips, so you do gotta keep that in mind. But you are gambiting 4 shields and putting 4 traps on them, and you do gotta realize if we make this a little bit bigger, it's 50% traps. So there's a lot of value behind this as well. So keep that in mind. So death, you got a lot of variety too, just like myth, where it's like, it depends on what you're packing. I just don't see anyone packing this, but I feel like it's like this, the Pyro Dragon's like a no-brainer. I just don't really see people packing these at the moment, at least the secondary card for the fusion. So who knows, right? Who knows? I can't really say. It's just my opinion. My opinion. And then balance. Balance is all things. It really depends on what you're doing on a balance. I've seen some balance PvP, at least in the test realm, and I've just seen people just spam Chameleon. So I haven't really seen anyone as a balance fuse and actually use these spells, if I'm being completely honest. So when it comes to PvP, I feel like people are just gonna be spamming Chameleon stuff and like spamming what is it, the Novus spell, the pyramid, right? Like that's not going to change. I feel like, I don't know, like maybe people might use this because all these fusions give you something, but it depends on what if there's another hanging effect on the field. Like this one will give you an increased hot. Some people got this confused. I mean, it's just the writing, I can understand, but people need to understand this is a hit, and then it gives you 210 hot for 4 rounds per shield. Now when you see this, you're probably like, oh, so I get 3 hots? No, this increases the hot value. They really do need to change this writing, in my opinion, to make it like word it in a way where it's meaning, oh, it's going to increase the hot value, not giving you a per hot. So hopefully they can change that in the future. But yeah, so this depends on what, like, you're probably not going to be using fire. The ice one, I mean, maybe if you have negative charms on you, but like it depends on what negative charms you have on you. And then I feel like lightning lotus is good. It's really good, because if you pay attention to what trap it gives you, we can make this a little bit bigger. You get a 55% universal trap, so, and it's 3 pips. Like I feel like this can be like a no-brainer as well too. But like I said, it depends on the dot you have. If it's a pretty big dot, you want to get rid of it ASAP. But hey, who knows, right? But I still think lightning lotus would be like your best bet. I do like mind blown, but it depends. It really depends on, like, this one, it really depends too, because if they're not really shielding, we're not really going to use this fusion. Like Minotaur's good, you're going to be, you know, it's value. Power Nova is good, and you know, with Minotaur it's going to clear shields anyways. So at that point, would you rather just use Minotaur to do a double hit and then clear some shields and put mid traps on them, or would you combine it with Power Nova and leave the shields on them, but you know, the more shields they have, the more, you know, traps they get, and these traps are 30%, so maybe you want to use that to your advantage. And I don't see anyone using this life one. It's too annoying to set up. You essentially just have to link to set this up, but like no one's gonna use this. No one's using this, I'm sorry. And then yeah, the Death Scuttler is going to be kind of good too, just because it's very easy to use, I'll be honest. But because it puts 2 chromatic, or no, yeah, it puts 2 chromatic weaknesses on them if they just have blades up to 2. So if they have 2 blades, 2 chromatic weaknesses. So it's very easy to set up. So I feel like maybe Death or Storm is going to be your way for like PvP, in my opinion. I just don't see anyone else using the other ones. And then Frozen Storm, it just depends. But that's my take on like when it comes to PvP. But like for PvE stuff, it's very straightforward. It's like a no-brainer. Use Storm. If you can't weave into Storm, because you're Storm, you weave into Bounce. Now, what's the second weaving option you want to go to? Myth. Now, if you're a Myth, what do? You literally just do Storm and then either Ice or Bounce. Now, if I'm a Death, what do? Well, you're still going to be weaving into Storm and Myth, but every other character should also weave into Death just for the negative aura. So I would treat Storm as a priority, then Myth, and then Death. Hopefully that gives you guys a better idea. A lot of this stuff is kind of just straightforward, so I didn't want to like cover it too soon, because I feel like some of it's kind of just very straightforward. I know it depends on the person, not everyone's going to understand it right off the rip, but yeah, I better be seeing like a lot of people weaving into Storm, especially for like when I'm trying to do advanced content stuff, because I'm going to be looking for people who have like the dual blades weaving into Storm. It's just so good. It's so good. And I'm glad they cooked on this, like with the 45% blades. And even with like gold key stuff, like I'm not even lying, with gold key stuff, like gold key bosses and farming and stuff like that, some strats are going to be slightly changed. Some strats for like challenge mode, like boss rematches and stuff like that, I'm gonna have to go back and change it, because I'm gonna be including these dual blades, I'm gonna be including these negative auras, I'm gonna be including these dual traps, and it speeds it up drastically because of the extra percentages. Like, yes, 10%, some of you guys don't realize this, 10% is a lot of percentages, especially when it's stacked up multiple times. You can essentially, some fights you can increase like kill faster than like 1 to 2 rounds, and that's so 1 to 2 rounds means a lot. You can skip cheats, you can make less animations, you can save time. So there's a lot of things people need to realize about. There's value behind weaving. There literally is so much value. I know some people aren't even going to do weaving at all, but I'm just saying, when it comes to advanced content and moving forward and quests moving forward, there's going to be more cheats. There's going to be like more mechanics that they can involve now, especially with the negative auras and stuff. yeah, like there's just so many things. I would just do weaving, do it. They've reduced a lot of the requirements, the lessons, which I'll make a video on soon, right? But I'm just waiting for like more finalization and stuff. So there's that. But hopefully this video gave a lot of information. You know, hopefully learn something from this video. If you want to see these slides, like I said, it's in the Discord. Join the Discord. And you guys can like look at these slides at your own time and see what spells you want to look at. What do I get for weaving at what? Eventually, yes, I will be making like a better graphic, like an actual like image showing stuff a little bit more like more tidy, more clean and stuff. But I just didn't want to do that because card art got changed, right? And I'm still waiting on one of the card arts. Flood Amplify is not even in the game at the moment on the vendor, so I have to use the old card art. So there's that, but eventually that'll get fixed and stuff. But hopefully you learned something from this video. Join the Discord, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. And I appreciate everyone that's been subscribing. We finally reached 4K. Right, we finally reached 4K. I'm proud of you guys for helping me reach that, and I'll keep grinding and everything like that, of course, and posting content as much as I can. But yeah, be on the lookout for more content. Test run probably be ending soon if I had to take a guess. Most likely this update might come out next week. My guess. Don't be quoting me in like all around in the Discords and like in people's in people's streams. You know, Almond said test round's coming, like, you know, it's coming to an end this week. You know, we'll probably be getting this in live round next week. That's just my guess. That is literally just my guess, right? I know just as much as you guys. It's not like I get extra information. I just know just as much as you guys. But if I had to take a guess, probably coming out into live round next week. So that's why I was making this video ahead of time. But there's that. Leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.